especially, I would just totally speak for myself. I thought that toxic relationships and arguing was a love language at one point. I thought if you wasn't arguing and fussing and like
Yeah.
going to the mat,
Yeah.
with the person that you was with, they weren't showing that they love you, but that was the thought at the time. But for you, when was your, I need to transition from maybe how I used to approach having arguments and disagreements to fighting fair?
I remember coming to that realization, after we had, really got more serious about our faith, and wanting, at least, and I'll speak for myself, but just wanting, my life, my words to more reflect, the standard of my faith. And I also think I had a realization that when you say something to a person, you can't take it back. You can leave a conversation with a person, but you're still, the thoughts and the words that are said are still with you.
Yes.
And you can carry them. And watch this, they can bear root.
And when we define what fighting fairly is, it is having those conversations with the intent to understand, with the intent to move forward from those conversations, with the intent to grow from those conversations, instead of the intent to hurt,
Yes,
to harm,
or to win,
yes, to be right, for being right's sake.
Right and alone. Hello, somebody.
There's plenty of divorced folks right now that won that argument. Welcome to With Love, The Chambers,
where life, laughter, and lasting lessons meet.
We're The Chambers, a husband and wife navigating faith, family, and everything in between.
Here we share real stories, heartfelt conversations, and a whole lot of love. Because life isn't perfect, but God's grace sure is.
So pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee, or go ahead and sip that tea, and join us for honest talks, laughs, and the wisdom we're learning along the way. This is With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, friends and family. Rufus Chambers here, and I just want to welcome you to another very, very special episode of With Love, The Chambers. As always, we want to thank you for your continued viewership and listenership partnership. We are excited that you are on this journey and on this road with us as we continue to have some fun and engaging conversations that have been created and curated to add value to your life and bring you a little bit of sunshine on Wednesdays or whatever day that you choose to listen with us. I just want to greet my lovely wife, Jamila. Want to check in, see how you doing. How is Cover Girl Jay doing today?
Well, I tell you what, so excited to be here. It's always a thrill to come together on these Wednesdays and have these conversations with you first and foremost, and then to invite our listeners into it. We literally have said since the start of this podcast that it has just been so special and so great for us to be able to spend this time together, for us to have this point of connection, and then just really be able to engage with people who have given us their comments and their likes. There is not a day that goes by that someone doesn't tell us that they were encouraged or they were inspired or that they shared the podcast with someone. And so that's super encouraging to us. Lets us know we're on the right track. And it means so much that people take the time. And we don't take it lightly that people take the time to give us 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour of their time, listen to us on their commute. Some folks are on the train listening to us right now. And so we don't take it lightly that people take the opportunity to really engage with us. And so thank you so much to our listeners. We appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. Yes. And today we definitely have an interesting conversation. And if you clicked on the link or
Yes.
whatever, however means you found this conversation,
Yes.
we're going to be talking about fighting fair. Fighting fair. And Jamila, that's a term that we have been using for a number
We've
of
been using for a
years.
long time.
And I feel like early in our marriage, we quickly came to the understanding that there is a way in which husbands and wives and couples are to engage in hard conversations, but do so in a fair manner. And we've obviously counseled couples and counseled,
Yes.
husbands and wives separately and men and women separately on their relationships. And I feel like that's a theme that we always run back to
Mm-hmm.
in trying to understand what is a fair fight, what is a fair heated fellowship. For the church
Right.
folks, we could say
For
heated
the church folk.
fellowship.
Yes.
Heated fellowship as if that's different than an argument.
What's up with
But
that?
but
Yes.
I think we believe and we understand that there is a way in which people should have tough conversations,
Yes.
but do so in a respectful manner. And I guess if we go back in the archive, we go back in time a little bit. How do you remember us coming to that understanding and conclusion that there was a need to fight fairly? How do you
Oh,
remember us
goodness.
getting on that page?
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind with us getting on that page, and we have used this term over the years and in
Hmm.
so many ways, when we decided to close the back door. And
What do you mean close the
that's what I
back
said.
door?
So for
Yeah.
those that are listening or may not have heard us use that term before, there
Hmm.
was a time in our relationship, and it was certainly before we got married, that we made the decision that we wanted to be able to weather life storms together.
Hmm.
Like we wanted to be able to go the distance with one another, and we were going to not give ourselves an option of leaving,
Okay.
not giving ourselves an option of going nuclear, so to speak.
Okay.
And we weren't giving ourselves a back door or a way out. That's
Mm.
what the back door is. And so I think when we decided that we were going to close the back door, we weren't going to give each other a way out
Mm.
of our relationship, that really caused us to think very differently about how we communicate with one
Okay.
another. Um, when you're dating and you're not sure if that's your person, and especially I would just totally speak for myself. I thought that toxic relationships and arguing was a love language at one
Mm.
point. I thought if
Mm.
you wasn't arguing and fussing and like
Yeah.
going to the mat,
Yeah.
with the person that you was with, they weren't showing that they love you, like,
Hmm.
but that was the thought at the time. And so figuring out and dealing with my perceptions around how those types of conversations were supposed to occur, and how those disagreements were supposed to
Hmm.
occur, and not giving myself the option to say, well, I'm out of here, or
Mm.
I'm done with you,
Mm.
or we through,
Yeah.
or any of those things, which by God's grace, we have never said to each other. It's never
Mm.
been a we through, we out of here, that sort of thing. And so when we made that decision, I think that was my first indicator
Mm.
that we need to decide differently how this is going to go
Hmm.
when we get into those moments when it's tough. But for you, when was your I need to transition from maybe how I used to approach having arguments and disagreements to fighting fair? What do you feel like
Ooh.
was a turning point for you in that
Yeah,
paradigm?
I feel like, the whole fighting fair, I feel like I remember coming to that realization, after we had, really got more serious about our faith, and wanting, at least, and I'll speak for myself, but just wanting, you know, my life, my words to more reflect, the standard of my faith. And I also think I had a realization that when you say something to a person, you can't take it back.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You can't launch an insult, or
Yep.
you can't launch a barrage, a verbal assault on a person, and then, oh, you know what? I was just angry. And
Yes.
that's how some people do. You
Sure.
know what? I was just angry. I was just on one.
Yeah.
And people say that as if the words can be recovered from the soul of the recipient.
Yes.
And you and I know it can't. It
Yes.
can't be recovered. You know what I mean? So I think about, I just think about this collision of maturing in my faith, um, you know, and that's the thing, as we grew in relationship, we both developed a deeper understanding and appreciation of one another's past.
Mhm.
So then that was another thing, is like, wow, this is important, as to not damage, my wife, my girlfriend, my fiance, um, because I realized we were trying to get somewhere, not
Yes.
only as a couple, but as individually, right? You know what I mean? So I think for me, that's kind of when, and I remember eventually there was a book, I think, that we have by the Dollars, The Successful Family. I think there's
Yes.
a chapter in there, or
Yes.
a section about fighting fair,
Yes.
but yeah, I think, but I think, again, the biggest point for me is, you have to be careful what you say to your person. You have to be careful what you deposit into your relationship with the
Mhm.
person. You know what I mean? Because you can leave a conversation with a person, but the thoughts and the words that are said are still with you,
Yes.
and you can carry them. And watch this, they can bear root.
Mhm.
They can bear root, and they can create fruit. So you
Mhm.
have to be careful what you are speaking over and into your person.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And let me just say this, I'm an introvert. I'm a processor. You like to you're a verbal processor. I'm an
Yes.
internal processor. So even I think in this whole thing of fighting fair, as we've grown and matured, I know you like to you want to say stuff, you know what I mean, as a means of processing, and that's something else I had to come to understand.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's very interesting. It's very nuanced, and
Mhm.
maybe that's a later conversation in this
Sure.
conversation, but you know that's a nuance. So I
Yes.
think also about fighting fair, couples have to really spend time understanding one another,
Yes.
you know? And we went through this whole thing of, you said this, but I heard this. What
Yes.
did you really mean?
Right.
I said this, I meant this. You said this, but I heard this, so I thought you meant that. There
Yes.
was years,
There was years of that.
years of that. No, I said this, I meant this literally.
Yeah.
Please understand, I meant what I said,
Yeah.
not what you heard or what you envisioned I said. You know what I'm
Did y'all
saying?
follow that?
I mean,
Could you imagine? Did y'all follow what
I
he just
mean,
said? We had a hard time saying it just now. So
I didn't have a hard time. I knew what I was saying, because I
but
knew
yes.
exactly how it
Yes.
happened.
Yes. That's
You
fair.
would hear something that was not spoken.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And, well, why did you hear that? Well, I heard that because you acted like this on this
Absolutely.
day. What? You know what I'm saying? But
Yes.
again, just fighting fair is really, and to me, you fight fair by investing time in seeking to understand.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Really try and understand why, where, how. Give me an example, and really engaging, right? So
Mhm.
that's, oh, okay, you know, um, but it's been a process. It's been a journey, and I'm specifically thinking about our time living 5240 Zinfandel Lane in Vallejo, California.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about 483 Townsend Drive in
Yeah.
Benicia. I feel like those years were very critical in trying to establish fighting fair,
Yes. Yes.
because we were still learning one another. We're new to
Brand new
parenting.
family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
new
Brand new family.
parenting,
Yeah.
career,
Yes.
faith was new.
Very
We're
new.
trying to figure out our faith.
Yep.
Um,
A
and
lot of transition.
that's a whole conversation in of itself, the whole faith thing.
Mm-hmm.
As a man thinketh, so is he.
Mm-hmm.
And some folks ain't fighting fair because they ain't thinking on the right thing. Garbage in, you're going to get garbage out.
That's true.
Hello, somebody. You know what I mean? So I think, and you think about us being at our best fighting fairly, there was a healthy deposit,
Mm-hmm.
of the word of God that was helping renew our minds.
Yes.
Right? So this is this. Hey, y'all, if y'all listening, I wish we had an easy answer, but this is a very nuanced
It
conversation.
is.
It's a perpetual, gradual conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I know if couples establish the rules of engagement early in their relationship,
Mm-hmm.
they will be able to build, a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So Jamila, for you, when you think back, I'm talking about Zinfandel Lane. I'm thinking about Townsend Drive. Take us back to a real conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we were either not in agreement or arguing or in disagreement, whatever we want to call it, heated fellowship. How do you give us an example of what that was like? How you felt versus how you were trying to approach the conversation or the argument with balance and
I,
temperance.
I think when I think about those moments and the lessons from those moments, the word intention is what comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your intention or my intention with speaking to you was I speaking to you with the intention of understanding, or was
Mm-hmm.
I speaking to you with the intention of getting my point across?
Mm.
Or was I speaking to so I think that whole conversation around intention
Yeah,
is so important.
it
And I
is.
think from a fighting fair perspective, those things are very apparent and they come out and they're so clear,
Mm-hmm.
because I think when anyone has, and that's a nuanced piece of it all that you were talking about, I think most people understand what it feels like to maybe have a disagreement, but the person just doesn't understand. And what I would say often in those times is it that you don't understand or you don't agree?
Mm.
And so sometimes people use words in arguments and say, well, I don't understand why you are
Mm.
doing this. And I don't understand why you are doing that. And I don't understand why you just can't. And it's like, no, 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 no. You understand.
Mm.
You just don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
So say that you don't agree. Say that you think there's a better way.
Yeah.
Say that you, you know, don't like my point of view. But when you tell me you don't understand, you got me thinking that I'm, you know, a crazy woman over here. Like I'm, losing my mind, or I'm not, communicating. And that was what I would describe as those intentions. And for anybody that spent more than 2 seconds listening to you and I on this podcast, what you and I both do very well is articulate ourselves. And so, so it's not that it's not that our words weren't
Yeah.
coming out in a way that the other could understand. It was that, we had these barriers up because the intention wasn't really there to understand.
Yeah.
The intention was to get the point across or to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And or to win, or
Yeah.
to take some positionality, in the situation. We talked about competition in marriage in other episodes, but to just to have that position of saying, well, no, you're not gonna boss over me or be the boss over me.
Mhm.
And so I think that conversation about intention, and when we talk about fighting fairly, and when we define what fighting
Yeah.
fairly is, it is having those conversations with the intent to understand,
Yeah.
with the intent to move forward from those conversations, with the intent to grow from those conversations, instead of the intent to hurt,
Yes.
to
Or
harm,
to win.
to win,
Yes.
to be right
To
for
be
being
right.
right's
You could be
sake.
right and alone.
And
Yeah. Hello, somebody.
hello, so there's plenty of divorced folks right now that won that argument.
Yep.
They was sure enough right.
Had to pack their toothbrush
It
up
had to
and get
pack
up
their
out.
toothbrush up. Had to pack their toothbrush up, tell their brother come get them out the
Yeah,
U-Haul, right?
exactly.
So, but
Tyrone.
there,
Yep.
listen,
Tyrone had to pull up.
listen,
Mm-hmm.
listen. Um, but you can't use my
Yeah.
phone.
That's
That's why
right.
Willow
That's
singing.
right. That's
I be
right.
trying it though. I be
That's
trying it.
right.
I'm not the
That's
singer,
right.
but you have all of those things, and I think intention is such a big part of the
That's
conversation.
true.
And when I think about intention, we're talking about fighting fairly and how we define fighting fairly.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to say a few things about how you define fighting fairly, and tell me about some times when you was fighting below the belt. You don't have to get a situation. What they say? I don't have to say no names.
Mm-hmm.
But what were some characteristics or some behaviors of times when you weren't fighting fairly? I certainly got my own list. I'll let you start with yours. But how do you define fighting fair? And what are some characteristics of not fighting fair?
Yeah, I feel like, fighting fairly is communicating, in a manner that is centered in love. When you think about love, it can be, words of affirmation, words of adoration, words of celebration, but it also can be the truth spoken in love,
Mm-hmm.
where it's correction, it's chastisement, it's accountability, one of your favorite words. And I think tone matters.
Yes.
Tone matters, you know what I mean? Because sometimes if the tone is wrong, a person can't hear you, or tone can be a trigger for some people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If people start raising their voices, then
Yes.
the message is lost and the person feels like they got to defend themselves. And then I think fighting fairly is, again, we're persons of faith. First Corinthians, the 13th chapter, it gives a very hallmark definition of love.
Mm-hmm.
So fighting fairly needs to be through our POV of faith.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Not even getting into, reconciliation and agreement and, all of these principles that we see in scripture, that should really season our words,
Mm-hmm.
season our tone, season, especially husbands and wives. You
Yes.
go to Ephesians 5, mutually respecting one another and,
Mm-hmm.
loving your wife like Christ loved the church and respecting, your husband, etc. But not even getting into, all of that. But, again, it should be, because that's the other thing is like when you get into a disagreement, you get into a situation where you have a very emotional response. You got to anchor it,
Mm-hmm.
because again, you don't want to say something that's going to tear down your spouse. Because if you tear down your spouse, you could be tearing down your marriage or your relationship or your covenant,
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of proving a point,
Mm-hmm.
for a sake of I'm right, or for the sake of, and this is something we've dealt with. You could out talk me.
Mm-hmm.
Message, note to self, Jamila can out talk Rufus. You know what I'm saying? And but that can be weaponized.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that could be a detriment, to fighting fair. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And to your question about when I have not been fighting fair, this is a term that, you say I do, and I've even heard the kids, this whole gaslighting term. And I guess, you know, whenever you say I'm gaslighting, it's not really an argument. We're just riffing back and forth, but I guess in the right example, in the right circumstance, if I'm gaslighting, I'm not acknowledging an obvious fact or an obvious statement or an obvious feeling that's validated, and that's not fighting fairly. You know what I mean? But and maybe that's not a good example, but I think this is a good example, I think. Fighting fairly, not fighting fairly. I know this is, something that I've done is, you know, I we were in an argument or in a heated fellowship or in a disagreement, and I want to defend myself more than understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's almost like, if we were in a boxing match,
Sure.
I want to counterpunch more than I want to put my hands up,
Mm-hmm.
and well, no, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I want to defend myself. I want to strike back, or I
Sure.
want to, slip the punch or whatever, more so than, man, what is the sister saying? What is
Right.
Jamila saying? Why is she saying it? What did I do? What did I mean? How
Mm-hmm.
could I have done that better? Why does she feel the way she feels? Dang, you know what I'm saying? Um, and we've went through quite a bit of that,
Yeah.
especially even the last couple years,
Yeah.
where it's like, but sometimes, if a person feels like they got to defend themselves, they can miss the true meaningful conversation that needs to
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's not fighting fairly. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because it's almost like, hey, I want to get these punches off me as
Sure.
fast as possible. So guess what? I'm gonna start throwing. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's like So yeah, that's something, and I know that there's been a number of situations, and I think one thing for the audience to kind of bring us in, bring them up to some of the context of our relationship is, I feel like when you hit 40 and I hit 40, we
Yes.
both went through a phase where we're like, folks gonna start getting it more real,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I feel like
Right.
that
Sure.
included our marriage,
Sure. Yep.
where before 40, before,
Absolutely.
hey dog,
Yeah.
what's up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and at first it was you, and then it became me.
Right.
So then, and I know you was
Right.
like, well, dang, what's up with this dude? He got some little verbal squabbles.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm
but
saying?
something about hitting
Something,
hitting these
yeah,
milestones.
the
Yeah,
maturation.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And for me, it hasn't ended.
yeah,
I mean, not necessarily with you, but I'm still going through a change and a
sure.
process where it's like certain things that were acceptable for me when I was younger are
Yes,
absolutely no longer acceptable.
yes.
And part of that is I've really got beyond this whole people pleasing thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that, but so that's me. But for you, like, when is the
Yeah.
time when you felt
Oh,
like
no,
I wasn't,
100%.
you weren't
No, that
fighting
time when
fair?
I wasn't fighting fair, and so, um when I was thinking about this, because I was like, okay, we're defining fighting fair, but
Mhm.
then what's the opposite of that?
Mhm.
And it's two things for me in particular. One is keeping score.
Oh, you're an
Excellent
excellent, I
scorekeeper.
mean, you to not have a mathematical background,
For me
you
not to be the
are
STEM,
just
for me not to be
I
the
mean
STEM
I mean,
major.
Albert
Yes.
Einstein-esque scorekeeper, Lord. I mean, goodness, you are
Steve
superb.
Kornacki at the big board don't have nothing on me, okay?
You are superb.
Superb scorekeeper.
Superb.
You see how he just have now you just have now I'm trying to now notice when you said your things that was your shortcomings that you working on, what did I do? I just
I'm just
listened.
agreeing.
I
No,
just
no,
listened.
I was, I was
Ladies and
agreeing.
gentlemen, this is gaslighting. I'm
No,
glad we have it
no,
on.
I,
I'm glad we have it on film.
I'm simply agreeing with your
I'm glad
thesis
I'm glad
statement.
we have it on film. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
I,
He sat there and gave his points, and I said, "That's Lovey. You know what? Okay, amen." When I'm giving my points,
I didn't hear Lovey Amen.
see there we go. My posture was saying, "Love you."
Oh.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I'm glad he can run it back. Anyway, scorekeeping.
Okay. 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 Say more.
Oh, now he gets to say more. This is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so scorekeeping for me is one of those things that just isn't a fighting fair tactic. And a lot of the times, especially when conversations would be derailed with us and we were in arguments or really trying to get somewhere in a conversation, uh, um, bringing up a litany of things
Mm.
that I have like instant recall of. And that's when you were saying earlier about Jamila can't outtalk me. It wasn't necessarily outtalk and out communicate because we're both like great communicators. That's the other thing. We both are skilled at communicating and communicating through tough situations. We do it professionally, uh, in the ministry context, and all of those things. But what stops it is this instant recall, and I have a little bit more quicker draw recall on situations, and I know how to use them strategically. And sometimes it's not relevant, right? Going back to intention. If I was using it and it was relevant to the conversation and it was adding to the conversation and it was an example, that's one thing. But to use it and weaponize it as, see, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, that's the part where it transitions from being I'm remembering for the intent to add context or to, further the discussion or to, provide an example just to, further the conversation. But that intention
Mhm.
is a whole nother thing. And then the other part for me that I think is something that I have to just work through in those arguments to stop is the gunny sacking. Like to it as much as and you've heard Rufus say this a million times, and even in this conversation, as much as I do talk, sometimes when things really bother me, I might not talk about it in a moment and I wait until it's something
Mm.
and then you just gonna get all this smoke.
Mm.
You just gonna get and another thing and this too. And what about this? And what about that? And so sometimes that gunny sacking and not keeping the conversation as focused on
Mm.
the A and B clause that we was talking about
Mhm,
instead of the
mhm.
C, D, E, F,
Yeah,
Z and
yeah.
sub, subplotting, all of this stuff. It derails the conversation. And that's something for me over the years when you start talking about fighting fair. It's like, hey, I got to put my CVS receipt up. I know I can go back and check the annals and
Mhm.
get the history and the dates and you was there and we had on this and they said that and all this other thing. Um, but there was, there's that opportunity to just say, hey, and I think the common denominator in both of those examples is staying focused on what the conversation is about at that moment and not interjecting all these other pieces. And even you were talking earlier about tone
Mm,
and about when you were talking about those years of us struggling with, well, you use these words, but that ain't what you meant,
mhm,
because a lot of our communication is not just verbal, right?
mhm,
And so oftentimes in arguments, someone wants to focus on the transcript of what is said, right? I didn't say those words, or
mhm,
I didn't use that. And a lot of our arguments over the years was, no, you didn't say those words, but I'm looking at your body language.
mm,
I know your tone, right? We've been together since we were like our
mhm.
children's age is how long
Yeah.
we've been together. And so body language, tone, volume, right? I'm a pretty loud talker by nature, but I often use in arguments the softening of my
Mm,
voice uh to generate my anger versus volume, because volume is just my normal speaking voice and
mm,
and more jovial. And I don't even use my normal speaking voice on this podcast because I would be blowing out everybody's ears in their car all the time, because it's just I have this really um loud and prolific kind of speaking voice. And so I think all those things matter, and it isn't just the words that we say. And I keep going back to that, I can't get off of that intention, but it's our posture, it's our intention,
mhm,
it's our tone, it's our body language as we're communicating
mhm,
those things. All of that, says something different. I could say to you, "What did you say?"
mm,
And that's a very different thing versus, "What'd you say?"
mhm.
Those are two. If I were to type out a
Yeah.
transcript,
Yeah.
same word choice, totally different meaning
Mhm.
based on my inflection, my pitch, body language, all of those things. Same words. What did you say?
Yeah.
Two do
Yeah.
two totally different meanings. And so I think a lot of that when we start talking about fighting fair
Mhm.
is that we have to pay attention to all of those things, like that full person that's coming into the conversation, because all of that is communicating, even when we want to retract our words and say, well, I didn't say that. You were communicating much more than that, even if we didn't use particular words.
Mhm.
And so for couples that are struggling, like, hey, I haven't taken the time, I've maybe not even used the term fighting fair.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it role modeled.
Mhm.
um, I don't even know where to start with unraveling this pattern of
Yeah.
maybe hitting below the belt. And
Mhm.
and let's be clear, when we talk to couples, it's calling people out their names.
Mhm.
It's, bringing up shortcomings
Yeah.
in a very demeaning way. I mean, you all live with you and we live with us. We know what those things are. And we know what we mean by when you go there
Yeah.
and you go there and like Rufus said, you can't put the toothpaste back in the
Mhm.
tube. And people want to go there and go to the mat with the person they say they love, and then they can't take the words back.
Mhm.
And so for people that maybe have gotten into a pattern, haven't laid the foundation, or want to rewire, wipe that slate
Yeah.
clean, download a new software package, upgrade their software package. How do we start? Or what's the tools and tips to have them
Yeah.
start that conversation about getting on the page where they can fight fair?
Yeah. No, I think it's layered. And I think it's multi-pronged. I think number one, and this is something we talked about years ago, is, you really need to outlaw and banish,
Ah,
certain words
yes,
from being used
yes,
within the confines of the relationship or the
yes.
marriage. So number one, you have to establish that list of words or terms or phrases that are not lawful.
And divorce is a word not lawful
Yes.
in our house.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's an example. For
Yes.
example,
Yes.
for
So
example.
you have to do that.
Yes.
So you need to have a literal strategy
Yes.
for fighting fair. And then I think secondly, you need to also establish the list of issues that create these arguments. Is it finances? Is it intimacy? Is it lack of respect? Is it infidelity? Is it your family? You know what I mean? Whatever these items are, that is it the kids? Like, what are these bones of contention
Yes.
that you keep coming back to, and it's usually resolved by fighting? Um, you know, you got to fight fair, but you also got to get the items of the fight
Sure.
and start going through those. You know what I mean? We would tell couples, you guys need to schedule uh, a place and a time and a location where you could sit out and have
Yes.
a meaningful, fair conversation. If you need to get
Yes.
out of the house, get out of the house. If you need to have it in the dining room so everybody knows we're going to behave
Sure.
right here. You know
Sure.
what I mean? But we're at the library, at the park, wherever. But, approach those reconciliation meetings with intentionality
Yes.
and, with respect, with reverence, handle one another with care. You know what I mean? We're handling fine china,
Yes.
not a brick,
Mm-hmm.
that you could throw up against the wall, you
Mm-hmm.
could slam on the pavement. No, 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 no. Each other is fine china.
Mm-hmm.
And, in this whole emotional and mental health reckoning that we're living through,
Mm-hmm.
where mental and emotional health is now being normalized, we need to have a higher sensitivity to how we handle one another. And just don't think, oh, I can call him out his name.
Yeah.
He's a man, he could take it.
Yeah.
Or I could belittle my wife in
Right.
front of the kids. She can take it. It's
Right.
like, nah, we just shouldn't do that, period.
Right.
The world will belittle you enough where you ain't got to do it at the house,
Right.
okay? Um, you know, and even fighting fair to me is how you talk about your spouse to your friends and family. How do
Uh-oh.
you speak about them when they are not there?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because those conversations can follow you home because they're in
Mm-hmm.
your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's another thing, is like, and that may be something that nobody will ever know but you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I would reconsider that as well.
Mm-hmm. But
You,
out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth
the
speaks.
the mouth
So
speaks. You know what I mean? So if you're tearing down your person to somebody else, that's not fighting fair, even though that exchange is not in a literal fight with your
mm-hmm.
spouse, but it's the context.
Mm-hmm.
It's the meditation of your heart which spills out.
Yes.
And so yeah, so I think, I would encourage couples to do that.
Yeah.
Get your outlaw list and then get your to-do list.
Yes.
Me, project manager, and then you start working
Start
that
project
thing.
managing the
You start
fights.
project
Yeah.
managing that thing. You know what I mean? Because if you don't, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen.
And one thing that is interesting, and I was thinking about this again, this conversation about closing the back door and what's the end game with this.
Mm,
And I think if I had to encourage any couples that were struggling, it was really to make the decision and make the determination that it is settled, that we are together, that back door is closed.
hmm
So because me arguing with you and tearing you down and vice versa is just us reflecting that negativity back to each other. There is no such thing within a marriage of you tearing down your spouse. You one flesh.
Mm.
So there is no such thing as I'm going to belittle and down
Yeah.
talk and do that to my wife or do that to my husband. It's like you're the same person. You are doing that literally to yourself. You are imploding your own home.
Mhm.
And since the end game is for us to get on the other side of this and continue to go about growing and developing and serving our families and doing all those things, this is just part of the process. It helped get through the noise a little bit faster because it was like we don't need to spend the rest of the week on this. Where we need to get, because we know we're not leaving. Nobody wants to be dealing with this all week,
Mhm.
arguing and carrying
Yeah.
on. So, where are we missing it? What do we need to get to? And it also changes and reframes the whole
Hmm.
conversation because the intent is to understand and to get on the other side of the disagreement. The intent is not,
That's good.
again, to do all these other things.
That's
And
good.
so, I think that is just so important to just keep that top of mind. Keep that top of mind. And
Mhm.
and no shade, you were talking and I was like, man, those early days I had to battle through my own family culture and what my family culture meant in
Mhm.
marriage. I had to battle through even culturally for us, popular culture and hip hop culture in all ways conducive to, you know, Apache said, "I need a gangster," right? So
Mhm.
I won't finish the rest of the song for the folks that's
Mhm.
too saved. But like we grew up in a culture where the
Yeah.
music and the movies and what was like popular for us in pop culture. Even one of our favorite movies, Love Jones, that didn't end in marriage, right? That ended in them dating and kind of figuring it out. But
Mhm.
even all of those things, you're kind of fighting against all these things
Yeah.
culturally and trying to figure out,
Yeah.
what that's gonna mean for you and how to do all of that in the context and in the
Mhm.
culture of all the things that you're dealing with. There's some folks that have blended families and some folks that this is not a first marriage for them. And
Yeah.
and so even having to just navigate through all of that are all very real things. But going back to identifying the very real things, identifying the triggers and the
That's
barriers, and
right.
identifying so that there can be a strategy
It's
around it,
critical. It is
is
critical.
key. Is key. And I
Absolutely.
think once we got to a lot of that part of it too. Um, oh no, let me just stop you right there, Jamila, because you're not really talking about this. You're are you
Mm.
asking me to pay for somebody else did
Mm.
when you was there? I remember that
Yeah,
conversation.
that was
That was a real
yeah,
conversation
years
with
ago.
years ago,
That
but
was
early on in
years
our marriage,
ago.
when are you going to have me stop paying for
Yeah.
what the last man did? And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I was stuck in my throat, right?
Mhm.
Because that was the first time I even had a real realization that I was doing that.
Yeah.
And so there's all those things that you have to work through and go through
Absolutely.
and kind
It's
of
a
and kind of mature
self-discovery.
through, but that self-discovery. But
Mhm.
you know being in that place, in that space where you're able to kind of have those conversations and
Absolutely.
and work through that is just critical.
It
It's
is.
just critical. It's
It
critical.
is. It is.
Last word
Closing
for the
thoughts.
people. Last word for the people.
Yeah. Wow, this has
We
been
we
deep,
kind of
y'all.
we kind of breathing heavy on this.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, and even the meeting before the
Yeah.
meeting, we like, okay, we have a couple topics we can talk about today.
Oh
This is
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah.
We got a couple topics we could talk
Yeah.
about today, but what's gonna be the most important?
It felt like this was yeah, this top of mind, top of list, because I feel like again, people need help,
Yes,
in
it's
this
a real thing.
arena. Even when we get into some counseling sessions, people are rehashing the conversations that they've had prior to, and it's like we're
Yes,
wincing, like, oh my goodness, that was said, but yeah, I think closing thoughts, is, number one, appreciate your person.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Let's just start there. Let's put all of the, complaints, the
Mhm.
comparisons, the scorecards, let's just put that to the side
Mhm.
and, appreciate them through a filter of love.
Mhm.
Let's start there. You know what I mean? Um, and I know even in some of the earlier counsel session with people was like, what do you like about your person?
Yes.
Oh, I like this. Oh, I like that. That it's like, wow, sounds like an amazing person. You know what I mean? So I think, that is really a closing thought is
Mhm.
appreciation.
Mhm.
Um, because again, as you build one another up, man, the
Mhm.
relationship can just be so strong. And, we found out along the way that, when we come home, we're coming home to one another, not to fight one another. We're
Yes.
going to fight the world and external forces
Yes.
back to back. So save the smoke for the world,
Yes.
save the smoke for external forces. And I think last thing I'll say is you can't change your person. That's something else we had to find out.
Yes.
You could try and talk them into change, talk them into submission, but as a person of faith, we understand that God is the potter and we're the clay,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You know, the husband ain't the potter, the wife
Yes.
ain't the potter, So if you have some earnest, legitimate concerns about your person, you need to take that to the Father
Mhm.
in prayer
Mhm.
and intercede and pray. Um, the whole nine, right? And pray that God would intervene,
Mhm.
But I think appreciation is a great place to start, you know, appreciation. What about you? What closing thoughts do you have?
Man, you got me on that back to back like Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a
Literally,
yeah, is a
gunslinging,
gunslinging, but back to back,
gunslinging,
not
Bonnie and
yeah,
Clyde.
but not in the house. And what I would also say as you were speaking, I was thinking about the things that have come from us learning how to fight fair. And a lot of it has been role modeling for our children in particular. Um what they should expect in their
Ooh, yeah,
households.
that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, yeah. What I was talking to a colleague about this today, and I said if there's a decibel that is raised in our house, it's regarding laughter, not
Mm,
arguing.
yeah,
You know,
that's true.
and so to be able to role model that, and then to also understand, and we talk a lot about purpose on this podcast and a lot about so many things, but our marriages and our covenants and our relationships really they're for our enjoyment, but they don't belong to us.
That's
They
good.
have a kingdom assignment
Mm-hmm.
attached to it. And so our agreement, our role modeling the ministry of reconciliation and doing all of those things, us being together just impacts our extended family, our communities, the generations that are to come after us
Mm-hmm.
within our own families, just in ways that we can't even measure.
Yeah.
And we know that the enemy comes to steal and to kill and destroy, and God's
Mm-hmm.
not the author of confusion
That's
and all of
right.
these things. And so when we
That's
get
right.
into these moments of disagreement, we just have to invite God into the space,
Absolutely.
allow Him to do, what He can do. And,
Absolutely.
and and in some cases what only he can do, because sometimes it gets
Absolutely.
that real, like me
Absolutely.
me and Rufus ain't always got it. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't care how many microphones we sit behind in podcasts or whatever. Sometimes we ain't got it. Like,
That's
God, you need to
right.
come in here and do
That's
this because
right.
we ain't got it.
Step up in there.
Yeah, you got to step up in here because we ain't got it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so to allow him to do what only he can is so powerful because and we have said this on so many occasions, and even this podcast and doing this with you this year is just another manifestation of that. Like we didn't know when we were 19 and 21 and
Mm-hmm.
you know undergrads and that there was a larger
Yeah,
assignment
yeah, for sure. For sure. We was
to
just
to our budding love
That's
story,
right.
right? Like
That's
we
right.
we thought that was just about us and you know, the butterflies in our stomach
My,
and
my,
all of
my.
that and just not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that again it's just a greater assignment. And so again on the other side of that arguing and that disagreement
Mm-hmm.
or even the generational curses that are broken when we stop talking to each other a certain kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
man, it just changes and impacts so
It
much.
does.
So we just have to understand that our covenants have such a greater assignment to it
That's
as
right.
well. And we got to stay focused on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
with that, y'all, we're
Hey,
gonna
y'all.
sign off. We thank you for,
Yes.
listening, to this conversation.
Yes.
You know, we believe that, if you apply yourself and if you invest in your relationship, that your relationship can improve, your marriage can improve,
Yes.
your relationship, your marriage can weather storms that come unaware sometime.
Yes. Yes.
So our hope and prayer is that this conversation has been a blessing to you. Hit the like button, hit the share button. We encourage you to share this conversation with a couple that may be going through a very challenging time in their lives. And our hope and prayer is that this conversation will be a source of inspiration and a source of encouragement and even instruction, if you will. But with that, we're going to sign off
Yes.
from another episode of With Love, the Chambers. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again real soon. God
Yes.
bless.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. We'll see you next time. With Love, The Chambers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of With Love, the Chambers.
We hope you laughed, learned, and felt encouraged along the way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs a little love and wisdom today.
You can also connect with us online on all social media platforms at Rufus Chambers Online and at Jamila Chambers. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time,
Keep living, keep laughing, and keep learning with Love, the Chambers.